Okay, well, assessment during project-based learning is so different from assessment in the traditional classroom. So traditionally we think of assessment as being summative or formal, so that means that it happens at the end of the learning, whereas assessment in project-based learning happens all the way through from the very first lesson. So when we get kids to identify what they know and what they need to know in the very first lesson of project-based learning, that's a form of assessment. It's pre-testing. What do we know? And then what do we need to know? Where are we going from here? So you're immediately assessing kids' critical thinking, their ability to generate ideas and ask questions. So assessment, particularly using the Discover, Create, Share kind of structure of project-based learning, often at the Discover stage there'll be some kind of assessment relating to their inquiry process, so their critical thinking, the quality of their research. Sometimes there's an essay, sometimes there's a test at the end of that. It could be, 3 lessons in, it could be 2 weeks into the project. And then when we move into the create cycle, where the students are creating some kind of product for a real world audience, we tend to assess their creative thinking, their ability to work as a team, so their ability to give and receive feedback. We assess those soft skills, but we also can formally assess their draft. So if, for example, in an English project, their final product is to write a short story for an audience, it could be grandparents, it could be kids from the local primary school or preschool, we have to have a look at that draft and see that they've got the right punctuation, grammar, that they've got all of the elements of narrative. So that's formative assessment, where the kids are getting feedback so as that they can improve that product. And then at the final stage, the share, it's the final product and the final pitch or presentation to the audience. So of course we're doing assessment of the final product, which seems more traditional. You can use a criteria or a checklist, marking criteria like you would normally use a rubric. And then their actual presentation, so we can use a checklist or a rubric for that, for how well they've presented their understanding to their audience. So assessment is both formative and summative. It's ongoing, it's formal and informal, and it's not just content, it's also skills. So you can see that assessment is incredibly different in project-based learning to the traditional classroom.